Everybody, it's Charles, your hobby hero, and today we're going to be talking about why you shouldn't use CCS and why you should. So before we get started, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down in the bottom corner. I do appreciate it. I do put out regular content about the hobbies that I love the most. Having said that, let's go ahead and jump right in. If you are not familiar with what CCS is, that is the pressing service that CGC uses if you submit your books to them and you elect to have them work on your books prior to doing that. Now, you're thinking, this is the biggest grading company in the world. Why would you not want to use the biggest grading company in the world to press your books? Well, same reason why we talk about the discrepancies in the grading there. These people, while they do this for a living, aren't necessarily the professionals you may associate with that term. These people a lot of times are hired with little to no experience, trained to perform a very specific task, and then that task is done for however long they decide to work there for that company. They could have been pressing books for 1 month, they could have been pressing books for 2 months, they could have been pressing books for 13 years and just stayed at CGC the whole time. Probably unlikely due to the fact that if they were that good at it, they'd probably just start doing it on their own. But that's neither here nor there. You're never going to know exactly what you're getting while you're there. What the results that we have seen from them is that the service that they provided are very basic in order to eliminate a lot of the risk associated with pressing books. They are basically just doing the bare minimum on those books. You're not going to have a lot of preventative or restorative measures that are more risky because for them, their business, they have to reduce those costs. The cost associated with pressing there is not terribly high, but for that cost, you can usually find a very experienced presser who's going to be able to work on those books. He's going to be able to push those books maybe to their absolute potential and really work on those books in the way they need to be worked on, such as adding things like moisture to the books, wet cleaning, stuff like that is not going to happen if you're sending it to CCS to get worked on. The other side of that, and probably the biggest aspect of it, is turnaround time. So I had a submission recently, and I'll link that one up here, where they had to do a book for me, and I've got one here that just came back, and these books were gone for about 10 months compared to the counterparts right now, which are gone for like 4 to 6 weeks. In that time span, a lot can change. And again, for that, basically that same price, you can find a presser that can probably get your books done in a third or a lot shorter time, depending on what you're looking at there. So some of the advantages to doing it, and the reason why this book was submitted, is you can send gold label books in there that are witness signatures, and they will retain their witness signatures. So if you have a book now that you've purchased, it has pressable defects on it, but it has a gold label witness signature from CGC, I can't work on it. If you send it to me, I crack it open and press it, and send it back to CGC, it will get the green label of someone's name signed on front. It doesn't matter if I send it back in with the gold label that it had on it. They will not work on it across the board. I've heard that there is like a select few pressers out there that CGC will allow to work on gold label books. I have not confirmed that, and I have not used them. If you do know of somebody, I would definitely double check that that is the case with CGC before sending them your gold label books to crack them open. But we have this book here we're going to open up and talk about kind of why that timeline is important. Now, if it's something that's for your personal collection and you just want all of it to go to one place, it does save you on shipping because you only have to ship it to CGC to get that pressed and graded at that location versus shipping it to a presser and then having them ship it to CGC. So there is a little bit of cost savings there, but the time difference is huge, and this book is a very prime example of it. So this book is Department of Truth #1. This is a signed 1 in 50, the cover E on this one here. Great looking book. I got this book as a 9.6 in a mystery box from Eye Candy's Comics, and the bottom corner down here was crunched. Actually, you can still kind of see it on there. See how that white spine tick is? And you can actually see the whole line on there. So another thing, the pressing results have been less than stellar from the books that I've seen they've pressed, but it got the 9.8 bump that was on it. So you're like, oh, that's awesome. You send it to CCS. because it was a gold label as a 9.6. It got the 9.8 that you wanted. That's awesome. What's the bad news? So in January, I think, was when this book was submitted. This book was selling for $500 in a 9.8 and $195 in a 9.6. Like $300 more in value if I can get this thing to bump to 9.8. I think it can bump to a 9.8. It bumped to 9.8. I spent $20 on CCS to press it, I think was the cost, and then the grading fees to get it regraded, shipping to them, shipping back, probably in the neighborhood of like $80 that I spent on it to get this whole process done. A 9.8 recently sold for I think $186, and so we have lost $4 in value after investing another $80 into this book because of that ridiculously long turnaround. Now, could it go up again if this thing gets optioned? It absolutely could go back up. I think it's a great looking cover and a book that I do not mind having signed. James Tinian, again, is one of my favorite writers at this point in time. So I don't mind having this book in this cover, in this signature, in a 9.8 versus a 9.6. For me, as a personal collection item, it would have been worth the $80 regardless. If you're just trying to sell these books, though, it's something to consider that timeline, if you're sending to CCS for a gold label book, for that flip, if it's not something timeless like a Todd McFarlane or a Stan Lee signature, that book may be ice cold by the time you get it back, like Department of Truth is currently. So something to take into consideration with theirs. So in summary, if you've got a gold label book, I think CCS is your only option going forward. If you've got maybe one book that's a PC book that you really just, you want it to look nice, needs a little minor work, another option for CCS, probably an overall cheaper option, is to go through CCS, and you don't care when the timeline comes back. For every other scenario, this is where you're going to want to develop relationships with a professional presser, somebody who is going to be able to work with your timelines, somebody who's going to be able to really work heavily damaged books or heavily worn books to the max potential that they are going to get, and they are going to get you the best results in the least amount of time for the least amount of money put in overall as far as net cost evaluation. So let me know what your experiences with CCS are down in the comment section below. Until next time though, guys, I'll be Hero out.